Hey everyone, welcome to another deep dive with us.
It's great to be here.
Today we're tackling a big one.
Oh, yeah.
Representation of Black characters in movies and TV shows.
Yeah, it's a conversation that never seems to go away, does it?
Never seems to go away, and I think that's why we're here.
Exactly.
To dive into it, to really try to get to the bottom of it.
Absolutely.
We're going to be focusing on a really interesting video essay by the creator Hammer called The Plight of Black Characters.
Yeah, this one really digs deep. I think you'll find it insightful.
So let's jump right in.
Right.
Hammer starts off with a pretty bold statement.
Okay.
Saying that America's history as a white settler nation has had a huge impact on how Black people are portrayed in media.
And you know, it's true when you think about it. This historical context of exclusion has really shaped the limited roles we often see.
So then that brings us to this idea of the token Negro, which Hammer talks about quite a bit.
Right. It's the idea that even when Black characters are included, they're often not fully developed. They're there to check a box, but not to tell a real story.
It's like surface level representation.
Exactly. Like they might be the sidekick or the comic relief or even worse, the first to die.
And that's not real representation, is it?
Not at all.
Yeah.
It's reducing an entire group of people to these simplified tropes.
And then there's this double standard that Hammer points out,
Yeah.
which is really frustrating.
Oh, tell me about it.
On one hand, studios are accused of forced diversity when they introduce original Black characters.
Right.
But then when they try to race swap existing characters, they get backlash for that too.
It's a no-win situation sometimes.
And Hammer brings up two really big examples I think we all know.
Uh-huh.
Finn in the new Star Wars movies,
Yeah.
and then Halle Bailey as Ariel in the Little Mermaid remake.
Both sparked huge debates online, didn't they?
Huge debates, and I feel like they highlight just how sensitive this whole topic is.
Definitely. I mean, you had people upset about a Black character in a lead role, and then others upset about changing a character's race.
It's like, where's the middle ground?
Right. It shows how challenging it can be to navigate these conversations and find ways to represent everyone authentically.
And then Hammer also points to the recent case with Jonathan Majors as an example of how quickly the public can turn on a successful Black actor.
Especially when accusations come up. It's a stark contrast to how some white actors with similar allegations have been treated.
It definitely raises questions about the different standards that seem to exist.
Absolutely. It makes you wonder if there's a certain level of discomfort with Black actors achieving a certain level of success.
And with all of these challenges, it's no surprise that Black creators often end up having to create their own spaces.
Like BET or Tyler Perry's movies.
Right.
It's almost like they've had to carve out their own niche just to see themselves represented.
Exactly.
But it's also a testament to their resilience and creativity.
For sure. They're not waiting for permission. They're taking control and telling their own stories.
And those stories are resonating with audiences, which begs the question, why should they have to create their own spaces in the first place?
Yeah, that's the big question, isn't it?
It is.
Shouldn't Hollywood, which always talks about diversity, be doing more to support these stories?
You would think so, right? But I think it's more complicated than that. There are a lot of factors at play, both within the industry and in society as a whole.
And that's what we're going to unpack further, I think.
Absolutely. We need to look at the role of studios, the audience, and even our own biases.
Okay, so let's dive into that.
Let's do it.
So where do we even begin with this? Like, who's responsible here?
Well, Hammer argues that both the studios and the audience play a role.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's like a two-way street.
So let's start with the studios then. What's their part in all of this?
Well, Hammer suggests that studios often just talk about diversity but don't really back it up with action.
Like it's all talk, no action?
Exactly. They might say they want more diversity, but then they end up prioritizing projects that they think will appeal to a mostly white audience.
So it's like playing it safe?
Yeah, kind of. They're not willing to take risks on stories that might not fit the traditional mold.
And that's where the audience comes in, right?
Right, because ultimately studios are trying to make money.
Right.
And if they think a certain audience won't support a movie or TV show with a diverse cast, they're less likely to make it.
So it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
In a way, yeah.
But Hammer also talks about this idea of like natural human tribalism and how that plays into all of this.
Yeah, this is where it gets really interesting. You see, as humans, we naturally gravitate towards what we're familiar with.
Makes sense.
We like to see people who look like us, who share our values, who we can relate to.
So when we see characters who are different from us, it can be kind of jarring.
Exactly. It can challenge our comfort zones.
And for some people, that can lead to pushback.
Right. They might feel like their stories aren't being told anymore, or that they're being excluded.
But But wouldn't you say that that discomfort is actually a good thing?
I think it can be. Yeah. It can be an opportunity for growth.
To learn about different cultures, different perspectives?
Absolutely. To broaden our horizons and become more empathetic.
So how do we get past that initial discomfort?
Well, I think it starts with being mindful of our own biases.
Okay.
Are we actively seeking out diverse content?
Are we supporting creators from different backgrounds?
Exactly. Are we willing to step outside of our comfort zones and experience something new?
And I think that's a big part of it, right? Like being more intentional with our choices.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's not enough to just passively consume whatever's put in front of us
We have to make an effort to seek out diverse voices.
and support them with our viewership, with our dollars, with our voices.
So it's about being more active participants in the media landscape.
Exactly. We have the power to shape the kind of content we want to see.
And that's a powerful thing.
It is. It's about using that power to create a more inclusive and representative media landscape.
One thing that stuck with me from Hammer's essay was this idea that Black characters are often portrayed in very limited ways.
Oh yeah, like either saints or sinners.
Exactly.
With no room for the complexities in between.
It's like they're not allowed to be fully human.
Right, it's this very narrow view of what a Black character can be.
And it reinforces this idea that they're not as complex or nuanced as white characters.
Not true at all. We need to see more Black characters who are allowed to be flawed, to make mistakes, to be funny, to be serious, to be everything in between.
To just be people.
Exactly.
And that brings us to another point that Hammer makes, which is the need for more stories that focus on Black joy.
Black love, Black success.
It's not always about struggle and trauma.
No, it's not. We need to see the full spectrum of Black experiences.
Good, the bad, and everything in between.
Exactly. We need stories that celebrate Black culture, that uplift and inspire, that show the beauty and resilience of the Black community.
And I think that's something that's been missing for a long time.
It has. But I'm starting to see a shift. I'm seeing more and more creators telling these stories.
And that's exciting.
It gives me hope that we're moving in the right direction.
So how do we keep that momentum going?
Well, I think it comes down to both the industry and the audience making a conscious effort to support these stories.
To seek them out, to amplify them.
Exactly, and to demand more of them.
Because ultimately representation matters.
It does. It shapes our understanding of the world and ourselves.
And it's something we all have a responsibility to work towards.
Absolutely. It's a collective effort.
So as we continue to explore this issue, I'm curious, what are some of the more subtle ways that tokenism shows up in movies and TV shows?
Oh, that's a great question. I think one subtle form is what I call background diversity. Yeah, you'll see a diverse group of people in a scene like a crowd or a workplace. But they're just there in the background. They don't really have any lines or any impact on the story.
It's like they're just props.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like saying, look, we're diverse without actually giving those characters any substance.
So it's more about appearances than actual representation.
Right. And another subtle form of tokenism is what Hammer calls the magical Negro.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that one.
It's that trope where you have a Black character who exists solely to help the white protagonist achieve their goals.
Like they're wise and mystical and always know the right thing to say.
Exactly. But they often lack their own desires or motivations.
So their whole purpose is to serve the white character's journey.
Yeah, it's like they're not allowed to be their own person with their own story.
It's really reducing them to a plot device.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it reinforces this idea that Black characters are there to support white narratives rather than having their own.
So dismantling these more subtle forms of tokenism, it seems like it requires a pretty big shift in mindset.
It does, both in Hollywood and among audiences.
Yeah, we need to move beyond just including diverse faces and really think about how those characters are written and how their stories are told.
Right, it's about quality of representation, not just quantity.
And that's where having diverse voices behind the scenes is so important.
Absolutely. We need more writers, directors, producers who can bring those authentic perspectives to the table.
So it's not just about what we see on screen, it's about who's creating those stories.
Exactly. It's about creating a more inclusive and equitable industry as a whole.
And Hammer does seem hopeful in the essay that change is possible.
Oh yeah, definitely. But they emphasize that it's going to take a collective effort.
Like we all have a role to play.
Exactly. One thing Hammer mentions is this idea of an inclusion writer.
Oh yeah, I've heard of that.
It's basically a clause that actors and directors can add to their contracts
Okay.
that requires productions to hire a diverse cast and crew.
So it's like holding them accountable.
Right. It's saying, if you want me to work on this project, you need to commit to diversity.
I like that.
And beyond that, we need to see more investment in projects that are led by Black creators and that tell Black stories.
And it's not just about Hollywood, right?
No, it's about all forms of media, books, music, video games.
It's about recognizing that representation matters in every aspect of our culture.
Exactly.
Wow.
We need to be critical consumers of all media and ask ourselves whose stories are being told and whose voices are being amplified.
And I think that's a great takeaway for our listeners.
Yeah, we all have a responsibility to be more intentional about the media we consume and to support creators who are pushing for more diverse and authentic representation.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what are some actionable steps that our listeners can take?
Well, first and foremost, seek out and support diverse content.
Okay.
There are so many amazing creators out there telling incredible stories.
And share those stories with others. Spread the word.
Exactly. You can also support organizations that are advocating for inclusion and representation in media.
Donate to film schools that prioritize diversity.
Have conversations with your friends and family about these issues.
It's about making conscious choices and using your voice to create change.
And remember, even small actions can make a difference.
So that's our deep dive on Black representation in Hollywood, inspired by Hammer's fantastic video essay.
It's been a really insightful conversation.
It has. We've explored the history, the challenges, and most importantly, the possibilities for a more inclusive and equitable future.
And we hope this has given you some food for thought.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Until next time, keep exploring.